Okay, welcome to the April Agenda Briefing Forum, opened at 6:30 p.m, and I welcome all of those in attendance, and I invite Councillor Lee to read the acknowledgement to country.
Thank you. The City of Melville acknowledges the Pilbara people as the traditional owners of the land on which the city stands today and pays its respect to the Whadjuk people and elders, both past and present.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Lee. I draw your attention to the disclaimer on the screen. The affirmation of civic duty and responsibility. The advice of audiovisual live streaming and recording on the screen. The purpose of the Agenda Briefing Forum on the screen. All right, thank you. Item 2, attendance and apologies. We have no apologies and we have no councillors online. Oh, Councillor Spanbrook is online. Are you there? Oh, Councillor Spanbrook is an apology. She's not online. Thank you. I think we're talking about that in a minute, aren't we? Yes, we have the following councillors on approved leave of absence, and that's Councillor Wheatland and Councillor Woodall. We now move on to item 3, declarations by members. Are there any declarations by members who have not read and given due consideration to all matters contained in the business papers presented before the meeting? Nil. Declarations by members who have received and not read the elected members' bulletin? Nil. 4, announcements by the presiding member. Approved deputations or written submissions. There are no deputations or written submissions that have been approved for tonight's meeting. Item 5, disclosure of interest. Can the Head of Governance please advise if there are any disclosures of interest for this evening? Ms Newman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, Councillor Edinger has declared a financial interest in item RFT 242515, refurbishment works, Bicton Bath change rooms and toilet. Councillor Edinger is declaring a financial interest and will leave the meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Green, if you turn your microphone off, that would be helpful. Thank you. Item 6, public question time. I now open question time at 6:34 p.m. We have no questions that were received with notice for this evening. There are no questions from the gallery, so I now close public question time at 6:35 p.m. Moving on to item 7, awards and presentations. This item will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting of council. Number 8, applications for new leave of absence. This item will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting of council. Number 9, confirmation of minutes. This item will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting of council. And item 10, new business of an urgent nature. There is no new business of an urgent nature. Item 11, identification of matters for which meeting may be closed. The following items have been identified as having confidential attachments. E2565, RFT 242521, remediation and reconstruction services of Majestic Boardwalk, and E2566, RFT 242515, refurbishment works, Bicton Baths change rooms and toilets. Should elected members wish to discuss the confidential attachments, the items will be held until the end of the meeting, and I'll call for a motion to go behind closed doors. Item 12, petitions. No petitions have been received for consideration this evening. Item 13, adoption of recommendations en bloc. This item will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting of council. Now we're moving on to reports for this evening. Item 14. So we're looking at item C25-256, review of the CP 105 election caretaker policy. Ms Newman is available to take any questions. Are there any questions on this policy item? Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the report, I'm trying to bring it up on my screen. Please excuse me. Sorry. For allowances for, I think it was the babysitting, there is two different prices listed. I think one says $30 per hour and the other one is updated to $35. So I'm just wondering which is the right amount. Thank you.
That's actually the superannuation policy. If you could hold your questions until we reach that item. Thank you. I believe Councillor Fitzgerald has joined us online. Are you present, Councillor Fitzgerald?
I am, yes.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions on the first item, C25-256, review of CP 105 election caretaker policy?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, if there are no further questions on this item, we're moving on to the next one, C25-257, annual review of policy schedule. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, I'll move on to the next one. Item C25-258, adoption of new council policy, CP 128 privacy policy. Mr Tuffin is available for questions. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, I'm moving on to item C25-259, local government elections 2025. Ms Newman, Head of Governance, will answer any questions. Are there any questions? There being no questions, we're moving on to item C25-261, investment statements for February 2025. Mr Tuffin, Director Corporate, is available for questions. Are there any questions? Councillor Green.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For Director Tuffin, we did have some concern from a resident about some of the figures in the investment statements recently. Can you confirm that they've been addressed?
Mr Tuffin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the comments were in relation to the risk ratings applied by the Poor's and Standards Association or organisation, and that table has been updated to reflect their investment risk category. So, in short, yes, it has. So, as I said in my reply, all investments were still within Council's policy in terms of the type of investment and the information being recorded and reported to Council, with the exception of those risk ratings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up on that, I have been communicating with the resident mentioned by Councillor Green, and he said that the mistakes that he initially identified have been fixed up, but there's now, he believes, another error, and it is that Bendigo and Adelaide Bank is now showing as A- rated, and it was showing as BBB+ in the last report, and he says it has been A- since the 3rd of April 2024, i.e. the same day as Bank of Queensland. So if we could just look into that and see if there's still any errors, that would be great. Thanks.
Mr Tuffin.
Yeah, I'll certainly look into that. My understanding was that all the risk ratings had been reviewed and updated, so I'll confirm that.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've asked Mr. Tuffin before. The Bank of Queensland term deposit has got no bank guarantee, unlike the Big Four. Can you confirm that it has attained the tax guarantee status? Thank you.
Mr Tuffin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that's correct. It does have the same status as the other banks, and that has been confirmed in terms of the deposit guarantee.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor
Yes,
Fitzgerald?
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr Tuffin, again, probably you're getting peppered with them on the same issue, but one of the comments the resident made was that while we had fairly consistently had reports that there were limited opportunities to undertake green investments on the market, particularly with the withdrawal of some of the CommBack investments we had previously been in, that in fact there was a term deposit product that other councils were using that met many of the ESTDG criteria. I wonder, is this a case that our policies don't capture that product, or was that a product that we're not aware of? Basically, given the fairly limited, as I understand it, number of green investments that are suitable on the market, is this one that we should be considering, or are there other alternatives out there?
Mr Tuffin?
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Madam Mayor. We have investigated that matter, and you're correct. Westpac did offer a green investment going back to 2018. However, the way they structured that investment, there was only a total pool of funds available to be invested in. And I've been advised by staff that a number of attempts have been made to make investments in that particular fund, and we have an email trail to confirm that. However, every time an attempt's been made, Westpac has not had funds available for us to invest in. However, more recently, I believe it was late March, they released a new social tailored deposit program, which requires a minimum deposit of $1 million, and the investment terms are offered between 1 and 5 years. So we are now currently investigating that as an alternative investment to pure green investments, because as we understand, our last meeting with Westpac and NAB were that they were finding it very difficult to secure true, pure green investment options for their clients. So we are investigating that matter in terms of the social tailored deposit scheme, which is slightly different, and happy to provide some further information on that at a later date once we have all that information at hand.
Thank you, Mr Tuffin. And I must say, what you've said there does actually accord with what I recall discussing with the previous Director of Finance, Mr Ferris. So I'm glad to hear we've got those records. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wondering what the red cross dot is next to Westpac in the investment with financial institutions table. Thank you.
Mr Tuffin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. That relates to our policy currently has placed a maximum amount with any particular banking institution, which is 50%. In that particular case, you'll see it went to 51.57, and the reason that occurred was because there was an expectation that would have a higher withdrawal in terms of payments required for that month. So funds were put into the Maxi account, which is an at call 11 a.m. account. So it was a slight oversight, but unfortunately, at the time of the investment being made, it was under the 50% threshold.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from elected members? If there are no further questions, we'll move on to the next item. C25-262, Schedule of Accounts paid for February 2025. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, moving on to the next item, C25-263, Statements of Financial Activity for February 2025. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, I'll move on to C25-264, Common Seal, April 2025. Ms Newman, Head of Governance, will take questions. Any questions? Okay, moving on to the next one, C25-265, Superannuation for Elected Members. This is Councillor Hong. Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies. So I just wanted to flag potential inconsistency in the report. On pages 174 and 177, there appear to be two different figures listed for childcare expense allowances. I'm not sure if that's a typo or if there is a reason for the differences. Thank you.
Ms Newman.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hong. Yes, that is a discrepancy. The figure in blue on page 177 is the latest determination by the Salary and Allowances Tribunal. We will correct the figure on page 174. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, just a little typo on page 4 of the CP 091. It talks about the Mayor when fulfilling his role, and I thought that possibly we should change that to his or her or their role. So just a little typo there. The second one is the summary of allowances, and I see that things have been crossed off and the blue writing now has got as determined by the Salary and Allowances Tribunal and confirmed at budget adoption each year. But as I understand it, the Salary and Allowances Tribunal have already set down their determined salary allowances, and I'm wondering why we have to wait till budget adoption to look at this. Why can we not do it earlier?
Ms Newman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. So each year the Salary and Allowances Tribunal sets a determination, which is the increase that can be provided. The council then needs to make a decision on whether or not that increase is taken up by the elected members or not. So you will remember for the budget adoption for 2024-25, elected members didn't take their increase. So each year the council votes on whether or not to take the increase that's provided.
So my question is, do we have to do it at the budget adoption time or can we do it earlier? Can we do it any time?
Ms Newman.
So it is part of the budget adoption because that's the salaries that will be paid. So if you could do it at any other time, but you may also need a budget amendment to support that.
Okay, do the staff salaries, for example, the CEO salary get talked about at budget time or not?
Ms Newman.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the CEO salary is done through a separate process undertaken by the Governance Committee, but that is also included in the budget, and we've recently realigned that process to align with the budget processes. I may need to defer to the CEO with regard to organisational salary increases.
Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your question, Councillor Barber. So the staff salary increases are usually in line with the budget process and commence on the 1st of July. And so that also enables us to budget accordingly for those staff salary increases. So as Ms Newman identified, if council was wishing to look at an increase prior to the new budget, then there would need to be a budget amendment by absolute majority decision of council to increase the allowances prior to the normal budget process starting in the following financial year.
Sorry, am I allowed to ask a follow-up question?
Yes, Councillor
Just,
Barber.
I know the process we use, but when I spoke to councillors from other councils, they were sort of surprised that we do it this way and that they almost say that it's just a fait accompli if something is suggested by the stated Salaries and Allowances Tribunal, then it just gets adopted by council where we vote on it, which I find a different format. And could somebody explain why that happens?
Ms Bowman.
Thank you for your question. That is really, it's not necessary to specifically single out an item to council to approve that increase for elected members' allowances. It could be approved as part of the overall budget process. There just seems to have been a preference in the past to have that singled out as a separate line item as part of the budget approval process. So it could really just be approved as part of the overall budget without that specifically being identified in the recommendation to council.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've asked before about the choice, whether elected members, when we are paid superannuation, do we go into the default Gatsby scheme for local government servants or public servants, or we have a choice where the super should be directed to? Thank you.
Ms Newman, governance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lee, for your question. Elected members need to provide their superannuation fund details, as long as it's a fund that aligns with the super guarantee provisions. That's a valid superannuation fund. Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you. Got a follow-up question. I've asked before, Mr. Tuffin, maybe I asked the wrong person. So back to Ms. Newman, with the superannuation payment, can elected members who are aged over 65, can they take it as wages rather than setting up a brand new super? Because most of the people at the age group would have cash in their superannuation. Thank you.
Ms Newman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Unfortunately, no. The legislation provides that you must provide a superannuation fund details for superannuation payments to be made. Thank you.
Are there any further questions on this item? If not, we'll move on to the next item. CD 2544, First Nations Community Engagement Process. Ms Pickering, Director of Community Development, is available for questions. Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the report, it mentioned that $47,000 was spent on land and heritage matters in 2023 and 2024. How many engagements and consultations were involved, and how many panel members participated? Thank you.
Ms Pickering.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Hong, and through you, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I'll have to take that question on notice and I'll provide a written response. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. CD 2543, Non-Financial Advocacy Priorities for the Advocacy Strategy 2025 to 2029. Are there any questions? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm wondering if it's too late to add anything to our advocacy list.
Ms Pickering.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. No, it's definitely not too late. We can possibly withdraw the item. I don't know procedurally how we could defer.
Wouldn't that depend on the complexity of the request?
Well, yeah, so the process would be to not debate the item and take it back to an EMS, and then to listen to the request and then determine whether we include it in the report back to council.
Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. It may be possible for an amendment to be made if it's not significant as part of a process to amend the non-financial advocacy items, but obviously elected members and council would need to approve that amendment, and also if there was any advice needing to be provided by officers, it may not give an opportunity for a significant amount of advice to be provided on that matter, but procedurally you could make an amendment. If it was supported, then obviously that could be included in the non-financial advocacy plan. Thank you.
I think, Councillor Barber, it might be a good idea to circulate your idea as soon as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any others? Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the advocating for the establishment of local government climate action fund, a large sum of $5.9 million has been budgeted over the next 4 years for the climate action program with the city. Grant funding will be crucial to minimise the pressure on our ratepayers in delivering this program. What is the city's strategy for competing against other local governments and securing these limited and highly competitive grant funding opportunities? Thanks.
Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hong. That is actually contained in the financial advocacy area as well. So we'll obviously be seeking grant funding, as you've identified, for the Council's Corporate Climate Action Plan and the Community Climate Action Plan that Council has endorsed. So we have already been successful in obtaining grant funding in relation to a lot of initiatives, and recently just received $518,000 of grant funding. So the city has got experienced officers who are well qualified in writing grant applications and ensuring we're monitoring the grant opportunities that become available so that we apply for those grants when they come up. So that is part of our new advocacy area, that we have a new grants and advocacy specialist role. So they do help identify any grant opportunities, make sure we're best positioned to align ourselves with Commonwealth or state government grants. And so it has been successful so far, and we'll continue to make sure we're investing in looking at trying to find grants, make sure we put in good quality grant applications, and then also from a non-financial advocacy perspective, continue to lobby for additional grant funding to be made available through state and Commonwealth government. The advocacy policy, which Council adopted last year, does talk about the strategies that the Mayor and the CEO and the officers will undertake to try and obtain grant funding, and also advocate for those non-financial priorities, so we can just recirculate that policy. And we also have a procedure that supports staff in relation to those matters as well.
Are there any further questions on this item? If there's no further questions, moving on to the next one. CD 2436, Community Safety, CCTV and Technology Initiatives. Are there any questions? Councillor Barber.
I think Councillor Fitzgerald might have a question too, Madam Mayor.
That's all right. I'll call you first. I'll call him second.
Lovely.
Thank you.
All right. I see there's specific locations selected, and I'm wondering why these locations. Can somebody answer that question? I've got 4 quick questions.
Ms Pickering.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Those locations were determined through an analysis of crime report that had come through to the city, and from looking at the statistics coming through our pathway system, as well as some initial analysis of information collected from the community around those areas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could have a follow-up.
Councillor Barber.
So in my area, there's places like Point Walter, Troy Park, Bicton Bars, and I'm wondering, have the user groups been consulted about this potential having CCTV there?
Ms Pickering.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, the consultation with those groups would occur as part of the next phase of the consultation.
So this report doesn't mean it's actually happening, it just means that it's going to start consultation?
Correct. This report, the recommendation to Council is that we go out to community consultation and then come back to Council with a final report based on the outcomes of the community consultation.
Yes,
and just one more quick question, Madam Mayor, if I may. Reading the community comments, and they're concerned about community safety, and rightly so, they do bring up that they'd like more security, potentially CCTV footage at shopping centres. Is that our jurisdiction, or is that the shopping centre itself?
Ms Pickering.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That within the shopping centre is the shopping centre's jurisdiction. However, wherever there would be CCTV on our own facilities or within our own network, then we could potentially assist with providing footage as requested by the police and according to our future CCTV policy.
Sorry, so car parks and around the shopping centre, is that their jurisdiction or ours?
If it's their property, it's their jurisdiction. But for instance, we own a lot of property in this area that abuts onto the Westfield site. So there may be data that's gathered through our own CCTV network that might aid police in criminal work related to the shopping centre, but that footage would only be provided according to the policy that would be agreed to council, which will be coming back after the consultation.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, I'm referring to the OMC notes. So when I say page 76, it's the one that contains the full detail. That includes an image one, the pilot project functionality, that talks about the high-level process of the pilot project functionality. It notes that they will have a series of connected cameras. If they detect loitering at an antisocial hour, they will send a patrol out and determine whether the police are to be alerted. Given discussions that we have had about limiting access to the network of cameras, and in particular ensuring that the cameras purchased under the rebate, if that goes ahead, would not necessarily be linked to any subsequent database, is that still an accurate picture of what's going on or what's proposed?
Ms Pickering.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think if it's okay, I'll take that question on notice. I just want to be sure in terms of my response on that. And unfortunately, Mike Emery's not here tonight, so I think it's best if we provide a written response on that one, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you have another one, Councillor Fitzgerald?
Yeah, two others, or actually one more question and then one statement about an alternative motion. On that same issue, the sort of process for escalation is CCTV detects a person loitering at an antisocial time, e.g. the early hours of the morning. Does this mean that we would anticipate wherever we put up a fixed camera, for example, at the Three Bears Park in Palmyra, if someone attends that park very late at night or early in the morning, we would consider that prima facie an issue that needs escalation?
Ms Pickering.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your question. No, the tolerance would be set so that it would be a gathering of people, not just a single person perhaps walking their dog. But we may set a trigger. So the idea would be that a trigger of somebody in that vicinity would be a point where our patrol officers could look into that footage to see what was going on, and if it looked as though somebody was vandalising the property, then they would come out. But if it was just somebody who was walking their dog, then they would clearly leave, not respond to that. But if there was a large group of people and the camera picked that up, then yeah, we would probably go out and respond to that.
Okay, it just strikes me that the wording that we've got is CCTV detects a person loitering at an antisocial time, and then camera sends the COM Community Safety Patrol an alert with a small video clip of the suspicious activity. So this, I mean, just on our description of what the process is, one person in a park at a quote-unquote antisocial time is suspicious activity that we send a clip for possible investigation.
Sorry.
Ms Pickering.
Sorry, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. My understanding is that that particular technology is the technology that's related to the CCTV rebate and the opt-in of the home cameras, where that particular clip is sent to the patrol officers, and that is around loitering in and around a person's private home, not necessarily at the city's facility. But I think probably the best thing to do is for us to provide you with some more detailed information in a written format.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor, I think as we've previously discussed, I've indicated that I have an alternative motion that I'll be moving in relation to this matter, but I'm in your hands as to when's the appropriate time to discuss that.
That would actually be at the ordinary meeting of council rather than tonight, because it hasn't yet been circulated.
Well, thank you. I've just let our elected members know that that will be coming.
Yes, okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Could I just maybe jumping the queue, but it's with regards to that. So could I ask a question?
Yes,
about that?
Councillor Robbins.
So we received an email today saying an email with a draft alternative motion for the above mentioned item, which is referring to this item, has been sent to elected members, but I don't think I've received that. So was that an error that we got today saying it had been sent when it hasn't, or was it sent to some elected members and not others? Just seeking some clarity on that.
Yes, Ms Newman, Head of Governance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Robbins. It appears that it wasn't sent to all elected members originally. We will arrange for it to be forwarded to everybody.
Is that the item that is now forms the Councillor Fitzgerald's?
Yes, it
Motion.
concerns me a little bit that some elected members have seen it and some haven't, and we're meant to be discussing and asking questions now about this item, but some elected members haven't seen this draft alternative motion and others have.
Well, it was only for the purposes of somebody picking it up and moving it as a motion. So, yes, it's unfortunate it wasn't circulated to everybody, but Councillor Fitzgerald has picked it up and it will be circulated. I think it could cause confusion if we sent the officers email and then sent Councillor Fitzgerald's amendment, because it's pretty much the same with a few changes. So I wouldn't like anybody to be confused, get one confused with the other, which has happened in the past. So it will be circulated, and you can certainly ask officers questions about it. But it essentially is, can somebody, Ms Pickering, can you just wrap up the essence of that, that alternative recommendation, please, just for the sake of the other elected members who did not receive that email?
Can we have a show of hands?
Oh,
as to
sorry,
who received
I
that
think
email?
it has changed. So I'll have to pass this over to the CEO, Ms Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Robbins. Apologies for any confusion. So we have only just received a proposed alternative motion from Councillor Fitzgerald formally to the governance team just prior to, I believe, 5 p.m. this evening. So the governance staff had not had the opportunity to circulate that to elected members. It was received in time from a meeting procedure local law perspective. So there was a draft potential alternative motion which officers did provide to some elected members who attended a meeting, but that is not what has been submitted, and so we just need to make sure we send through the governance team the proposed alternative motion from Councillor Fitzgerald, which we just received. So it's not the same one, it is slightly different, and so to make sure you're receiving the one that has been formally submitted to the governance team this afternoon, we will circulate that to all elected members this evening if possible, or maybe tomorrow morning. Okay, so we'll need to tidy it up, make sure it's in the right form, etc., and in the right order, but we will send that as soon as possible.
Councillor Robbins, still retain on the same item? Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. So just a couple of follow-up questions from that. So will councillors be able to see the alternative motion that was prepared by officers, like originally, before Councillor Fitzgerald's changes were made to it? And then also, could I just have a response as to why the alternative recommendation was prepared? And like, was it prepared because officers decided they would like changes to what is currently in the agenda, or was it prepared as a response to councillors seeking something different to what is currently in the agenda?
Ms Pickering?
Thank you, and thank you for your question, Councillor Robbins. There was a couple of things that the officers would have liked to have had made in terms of changes, because we were unable to make the changes ourselves, and that was around the dates of returning back to council with both the Safer Melville plan and also the results of the community consultation. Based on some, the workshop that we had with the elected members, and then a follow-up meeting that was requested by a couple of elected members, we then felt that there were some amendments that we could make to the recommendation that would just provide some extra clarity around what the community consultation would cover, and also the budget for the CCTV rollout strategy, which, as we had prepared last year, had included the normal upgrades to our existing CCTV. So, in hindsight, the officers felt that that would have been unfair or not transparent to put that into the community consultation, because that really is an operational budget item that should have been budgeted for through the budget rather than subject to consultation. And so that was sort of a combination of officers' suggestions, but also taking into consideration the discussion at the follow-up meeting.
Councillor Fitzgerald, are you still wanting to say something about this item? You've got your hand up.
Oh, apologies. I didn't realise that. No, look, I think given the confusion, I wouldn't want to add to that. I'm happy to send an email around to councillors to clarify what my specific motion is doing, and again, apologies to other councillors. I wasn't aware that everyone had not received the proposed officers' amendment, or I would have circulated my comments in a different way.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. I think that's why we were having it circulated, or we thought it would be wise to circulate it early for this very reason. Councillor Robbins, is that still pertaining to the same matter?
Thank you. So I previously asked whether the officer's draft alternative motion would be circulated. So if I could just have a response to that, because if Councillor Fitzgerald's motion doesn't get up, then we go back to the officer's original recommendation, which from what it sounds like is not really what the officers want now. So my concern is if, we get lost, what the officers would like changed gets lost if Councillor Fitzgerald's motion doesn't get up, and then we go straight to the officer's recommendation as is in the agenda, and now we've lost the opportunity for another alternate motion with notice.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robbins, so you're suggesting that everybody gets the officers, that email that not everybody was included in, and then also Councillor Fitzgerald's amended motion, and I'll ask Ms Bowman if she could respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Robbins. Yes, we will circulate the officer's draft recommendation. As Ms Pickering said, it was a combination of different things, not just what the officers were originally suggesting be updated. It was based on the elected member engagement session feedback as well. So it was incorporating a range of different things into that potential recommendation. So we will also identify, I guess, the key areas which officers would like to recommend are amended in the original officer's recommendation. Because the matter was deferred from a council meeting in, I December last year. There is now not sufficient time for the community consultation to be completed and then a report to come back to council in accordance with the original recommendation from officers. So we'll just clearly spell out what are the key issues with the original recommendation from last year and also the proposed alternative recommendation, and then we'll identify Councillor Fitzgerald's actual alternative motion that has been submitted in accordance with the meeting procedures timeline. Thank you.
Right, so I think we've finished with that matter. So we've got Councillor Edinger. You had questions?
No, there's been enough questions.
Councillor Barber, do you wish to ask
Thanks.
questions?
It's not about the alternate motions, but it did make me think that it's such an important decision. Should we defer it? But you're saying it's already been deferred, so okay, I have to think about that. My question is also about clarity, and I'm concerned that we've got a map that says where cameras are proposed to be, but no directional information. So where are they pointing at Troy Park? Are they pointing at the clubhouse? Are they pointing at the car park? Are they pointing at the Oval? Where are they pointing at Bicton Baths? Are they pointing at the baths? Are they pointing at the toilets? Where are they pointing? And I think that this sort of clarity is really important. I know that people in Adelaide and Bicton are very concerned about security, but they're also very concerned about privacy. And I think we just need to be really careful and clear about where we're looking to put these cameras. Is that a possibility to get a more specific, clear outline on the proposal?
Ms Pickering?
Yes, and thank you for your question, Councillor Barber. That's certainly possible. We can provide that before the meeting next week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on this particular item? Okay, well, let's move on to the next one then. E2565 RFT 242521 Remediation and Reconstruction Services Majestic Boardwalk. Mr McCarthy, Director Environment and Infrastructure, is available for questions. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, we do have a presentation.
Oh, okay.
So, Mr McCarthy, could you come forward, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, elected members. Just give you a quick overview of this project and the procurement process we've gone through so far, so that you can consider the confidential item that will be coming in the ordinary meeting of council. I will not be able to talk about anything regarding confidential matters, so it will really just covering the procurement process. So the city undertook a tender process in August 2024 for the remediation and construction of the Majestic Boardwalk. We received one submission at that time that was higher than the budget allocated, and we also, the staff or the evaluation panel, had some concerns about the experience and track record of the tenderer in being able to undertake those works. As a result of that, that tender was declined, and the CTA recommendation was to go back out to market via a new request for proposal. In looking at that, some of the feedback from the suppliers is that the time frame between when we went out for tender and when we wanted the work completed, which was due to seasonal factors, was very tight, which some of the respondents felt that they weren't in a position to undertake that work. So we did go out for tender again. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I just make a interruption? Sorry, Mr McCarthy. Can we make the screen bigger so we can see the slides on our screen? Would that be possible?
Thank you. That's
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So when we went back out to tender in early 2025, we received 4 competitive tenders that are listed there in front of you. And the recommended supplier identified by the evaluation panel scored 90% qualitative criteria against the tender criteria assessment. Thank you. So there were a few questions at the elected member workshop last week regarding this project, so I thought I would just outline some of the rationale behind why we're doing this work at this point in time. So the works are a progressive series of works that the City is doing on the renewal of the existing Majestic Boardwalk that was initially put in place as part of the development of the Majestic site. We have completed most of that work to date so that the structure has been almost completely renewed, and this is the final section that needs to be done, and based on the feedback from the structural report, we need to do this work as soon as possible. Most of the work is beneath the main boardwalk, so it's on the elements that are the structure of the boardwalk, and the project is really required to be done in the summer months when the tide is low and the weather is more favourable, and quite a significant body of work will be done via a barge. Thank you. So the recommended tender was considered the most competitive from a cost and also provided the best methodology for the works. The tenderer has completed previous works with the City on both the Majestic Boardwalk and other projects in the City, so has a good understanding of the structure. And also we're expecting the work to take about 6 months, with the majority of work to commence in the latter part of 2025. So the City has previously undertaken renewal work on the jetty where sections of the path or the boardwalk was closed for extended periods of time, and we will be ensuring that there are detours in place to direct people safely while this is being refurbished. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Mr McCarthy? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. Through the chair, can I please ask whether the applicants for the tender who have failed, can they apply again? Because you were saying because the cost was too high. And the others who have failed, can they apply to the tender again?
Mr McCarthy.
So, yeah, through the chair, and thanks, Councillor Lee. So the successful tenderer will be advised that they have been chosen, and then we'll go into a contract negotiation process to award them the contract. The other unsuccessful tenderers, the City does contact them and give them feedback from the evaluation panel on their proposal, and obviously if it was very close and competitive and they had a quality submission, we would provide that feedback. If they didn't reach our hurdle rate or they were very expensive, we would provide that feedback to the people who responded to the request for tender.
Thank you. Are there further questions? All right. Thank you very much, Mr McCarthy. Okay, so let's move on to the next item, E2566 RFT 24-25-15 refurbishment works, Bicton Baths, change rooms and toilets, and Councillor Edinger has an interest and she is leaving. Mr McCarthy has a presentation. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is for the Bicton Baths public toilet and change room tender. So that's the structure located right at the base of the Bicton Baths jetty. The City went out to tender in February 2025 for the refurbishment of the Bicton Baths. 6 submissions were received. You can see the respondents that provided submissions to the tender. The recommended supplier achieved a qualitative score of 76.11% against the city's criteria, so that's above our hurdle rate and within the range that the city would be seeking tenderers. Thank you. Just a bit more detail about the project. So the existing toilet block and change room is ageing, with most of the internal fittings reaching their end of life expectancy. There's also been some safety concerns regarding the rear side of the toilet block, having only minor level differences between the building and a retaining wall. It also has these outrigger type support structures that children can climb up and climb onto the roof of the structure, which is raised safety issues with the city, so we're wanting to address those as well. Also, as part of our work with the DBCA, they are keen to see a bit more foreshore area, so we'll be doing some adjustments to the path to bring it back closer to the new change room to increase the area of grassed foreshore under the trees there for people to enjoy the Bicton Baths facility. So we have engaged with DBCA and gained their support towards that relocation work, and they are supportive of that. The city has also chosen the construction in the winter months to avoid the busy summer month period when the area is quite well visited. And that was really the reason why we brought this as a late item to get it to this meeting so that we can start construction as soon as possible. Thank you. So the recommendation there is for, based on the tender submission received, that the recommended tenderer for the refurbishment was considered superior due to the following factors: competitive in cost and provided the best methodology for the works. The company has completed similar work successfully for other local governments, so they had good referees. So this is the first time we've used this contractor, so it's good for us to be able to extend our network. And also the works are probably going to take about 6 months, commencing in May, and should be finished by December when the holiday period for the Christmas and New Year is in full swing.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr McCarthy? Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for my information, after the renovation, would the Bicton Path be open longer? Because at the moment it's closed very early. Is that because they're waiting for renovation, or is just very short opening hours? Closing at 1 in the weekdays, so I thought it's a bit early. Thank you.
Mr McCarthy.
So thank you for your question, Councillor Lee, and through you, Mayor. Are you referring to the Melville Water Polo Club opening hours? Yeah, so they have their own change rooms and showers within their facility. So this work isn't related to their operating hours. It's related to the public use of the Bicton Baths area and the foreshore area there in general.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Lee's question, have we been in touch with the Melville Water Polo Club and liaised with them about this project?
Mr McCarthy.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for your question, Councillor Barber. I haven't done it personally, but I understand the project team has talked to both DBCA and I'm pretty certain they would have talked to the Water Polo Club. The Water Polo Club are aware of the master planning works that we have done around this area and that we are refurbishing this facility. I can confirm that following a discussion with the team and provide feedback following this meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Barber.
I've just got another couple of quick questions, Madam Mayor, if that's all right. There's no plans on our motion, And I'm just wondering if provision has been made to make these change rooms bigger, because with the advent of the new shark net, this has become an incredibly popular place to swim. So are there plans to make this a bigger construction than what's currently there?
Mr McCarthy?
So thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for your question, Councillor Barber. So the change rooms, we did previously look at a larger, more bespoke design. However, that this was previously when we went out for tender, how that came back at an exorbitant prices, so we didn't progress that anymore. In discussions with DBCA, their preference was for us to maintain the existing footprint of the building. However, we're very confident that with the design that we've got, which includes a universally accessible toilet, as well as the refurbished male and female change rooms and toilets, that it will be a much more efficient use of space, so much more serviceable for the area that's there. We also have the toilet facilities up at Quarantine Park there, which we're also looking at doing refurbishment work on those as well. So that will bring back to council. So hopefully we should have 2 refurbished toilet and change room facilities in the vicinity of the Bicton Bars and Quarantine Park area.
Thank
A
you.
really quick
Councillor
one.
Barber?
Thank you, and congratulations to the tenderer. I did have, and I sent this to the Department of Communities, a local artist who was quite keen to paint something. Is there provision, or is it too early to start thinking about painting the side of the building?
Mr McCarthy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks you, Councillor Barber. So we have got done partnerships with artists for other highly visible structures around the city, mostly related to Water Corporation pumping stations, which are quite, blocky type of boring buildings. So we've done that in the Esplanade and also at on the Bicton foreshore, just north of the Bicton Baths. I'm not aware that we've considered that for this building, so I can take that back to the team, have a conversation with our community development teams as well to see whether that could be something we could do.
Maybe I could forward you the details I received. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Robbins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've managed to find the minutes of this, the relevant CTAU meeting on the portal, but I don't believe they're linked in the agenda, in the confidential agenda. Is that right?
Ms Newman, Head of Governance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Robbins. We were aware of that this afternoon. We'll arrange that linking to happen as soon as possible.
Are there any other questions? If there are not, thank you very much, Mr McCarthy. All right, number 15, motions with previous notice. We now move on to motions with previous notice, and we have 15.1, notice of motion progress WAPC structure plan reviews. The motion was raised by Councillor Ross and deferred from the March ordinary meeting of Council. Are there any questions to Councillor Ross? Thank you. Please remember, no debating tonight. Councillor Ross, you have a question?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a question for the officers.
What is your question?
I have 3 questions. In relation to question 1, the preamble is that the WPC letter dated the 27th of May 22, approving the city's proposed LPS 6 review, included specific advice to the council, not the city, to the council, that the city's LPS 6 review should include prioritization of the review of density code allocations across the entire scheme area and prioritization of the outstanding structure plans. The proposed notice of motion seeks a council resolution to implement the WPC's specific advice or request to council. The officer advice states that the city does not recommend that the council progress the notice of motion. I'd like some clarification, please. Is it the city's recommendation that the council disregard the WAPC advice.
Ms Bowman, CEO. Ms Bainbridge, Planning will answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for the question. The West Australian Planning Commission, we met with them in advance of preparing this advice note to seek some clarification on a number of strategic matters to assist us with providing the elected members a range of recommendations as to how we best can proceed with that initial advice. In relation to a lot of the structural planning that's required to be undertaken, we've undertaken a priority approach for our structural planning to look at the areas where we're receiving the most amount of interest and development, and that is taking up a lot of our resources and a lot of our time within our existing council priorities and council planning. So we definitely intend on actioning other structural plans that are required throughout the city within our remit and our resourcing and our budget requirements. So ultimately, the local planning scheme number 6 review has a statutory obligation under the Planning and Development Act, and so that is what's taken our initial priority. And then we also have expiring structure plans in areas which have high development potential and high interest from the development community. So that is, I guess, where our initial priorities are lying. The other structure plan areas, we are seeing less interest from the development community and also have a number of stakeholders to engage with, such as in the Bull Creek Station and Murdoch Station precincts. So they will be recommended to be actioned at a time when we can get stakeholder alignment and council provides us with the necessary resources to undertake that structural planning. Thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't believe that actually answers the question, but I'll move on to question 2. And the preamble to this is that the officer advice also states that the assertion in the reasons for motion, namely that since 2022, no action has been taken on the outstanding structure plans referred to by the WAPC is incorrect, because, as claimed just now by the city, has in fact taken action in conducting the following reviews: Canning Bridge Activity Centre Plan, my comment, that was completed in 2016, Burgoon Structure Plan, completed 2013, updated 2015, Risley Structure Plan, completed 2015, Cardinia Activity Centre Plan is initiated by the shopping centre in 2020 and not a City of Melville initiative, still awaiting final approval and awaiting modified documentation from the City of Melville, proposed to be provided in early 2025. Melville District Activity Centre Plan, completed 2016. Wilgie Structure Plan, completed December 2013. All of the above are structure plans that were completed pre-2022, and none of them are the outstanding structure plans referred to by the WAPC. And on page 2 of the officer advice, the following still outstanding structure plans are listed for future consideration: Petra Street, Bull Creek District Centre, Murdoch and Bull Creek Railway Station precincts. My question is, will the city reconsider its advice to council, as the city's evidence of post-2022 actions do not include any of the outstanding structure plans which were present at 2022 and which are referred to in the WAPC letter?
Ms Bainbridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for the question. In relation to the structure plans that we are currently undertaking reviews of, they're due to expire in 2025, so this year, based on the 10-year regulation requirements. So when they expire, they become more difficult to implement, and we still have a number of developments and development interest in these locations, which require us to make sure that we don't have inappropriate development in these locations, which has necessitated that these structure plans are reviewed as a matter of priority to make sure they're meeting the modern day requirements. The other structure plan areas were not receiving as much interest from the development community, and hence they haven't been as high a priority. The West Australian Planning Commission, in our meeting with them, has endorsed our approach to ensuring that we're prioritising structure plan reviews where we're seeing high development potential and high interest from the development community. We do anticipate that we will revisit our structure plans in other areas when we have the time and resources, and also that there's an appropriate demand from the market to look at those areas. And as I said before, the stakeholder alignment is a really big factor in determining when we take on some of these structure plan projects, such as you found in Metronet precincts, the state government provided a substantial amount of funding assistance to progress those structure plans. So until such time as we see stakeholder alignment in some of the precincts where you have significant state government land holdings, you need to consider the appropriate timing of those structure plans. And as I said before, the Local Planning Scheme 6 review is a statutory obligation that we undertake on a regular basis, and that is taking up a lot of our resources at the moment in our strategic planning team.
Okay, Councillor Ross, you have another question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My last question is, and the preamble is, the city's LPS 6 modelling dwelling projections concludes that by 2031, there will be a target shortfall of 4,299 dwellings. That is, the 2031 new dwellings target is 11,000 new dwellings, of which 4,104 have been built, leaving a current shortfall of 6,896 new dwellings to be built in the next 6 years. But the LPS 6 review is projected to only provide a further 2,597 dwellings over the next 6 years, leaving a shortfall of 4,299. The above are the city's projections, and the city have excluded the Bull Creek and Murdoch South Street areas, even though the city's preliminary projections show that these areas could provide 10,149 and 14,238 new dwellings respectively if the areas were rezoned with a blanket R80 multiple dwellings upper dual code. Because in practice, an R80 blanket multiple dwelling zoning would not be feasible or practicable, the city's blanket projections have been used to model an even spread across each area of R40, R50, R60, and R80 mixture of single grouped and multiple dwellings, which at a 25% deliverable projection would deliver 3,166 new dwellings over the short term, with a total deliverable capacity of 12,667 dwellings over the longer term if fully developed. It should be further noted that the current LPS 6 review modelling does not address the 2051 target of 18,480, which requires 7,480 additional new dwellings in the period from 2031 to 2051.
This doesn't appear to be a preamble. It's like a debate.
Sorry, no.
It's very long.
It's a preamble. Thank you. I'll come to the question now.
You have. Good. Thank you.
Taking into account that as the city itself projects a 4,299 shortfall in the 2031 target, and that the 2051 target requires an additional 7,480 new dwellings, will the city now accept that not prioritising and including outstanding structure plans, including the Bull Creek and Murdoch South Street areas and Petra Street, in the LPS 6 review is a serious omission that requires urgent rectification?
Thank you. The CEO, Ms Bowman, will respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross. So understanding you're making a statement regarding that matter. The city is obviously reviewing the local planning scheme number 6, and it's important that we undertake structure plan review processes in parallel with the local planning scheme number 6 process. As we have previously discussed, it's important that elected members, community understand that those processes require different planning framework considerations. And so it is something the city is very aware of, that we will continue to be reviewing the structure plans and also undertaking the local planning scheme number 6 review. It is a matter of resourcing as well, as the acting director has identified, as to whether the city can undertake more work in relation to the structure plans reviews, as well as also undertake the local planning scheme number 6 review. So the council can and will be considering, prioritisation of structure plan reviews, including the Murdoch and Bull Creek train station precinct structure plan review processes, and that will identify the resourcing requirements for council to then consider and then determine an allocation of budget and resourcing. Thank you.
A few more questions from others. Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You mentioned a few times that there's been no, excuse me, appetite or indication for to develop in areas outside of the areas that are currently foci for development. Is that because the developers who are operating in the, I'm assuming they mean the Canning Bridge Activity Centre, the developers operating there will inevitably get a better return on their developments? Do you think it's that, or is it other factors? Thank you.
Ms Bainbridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, thank you, Councillor Edinger, for this question. Development feasibility is very interesting, and it has a range of factors that determine how feasible development is before it sort of proceeds. We often see the cost of construction is a big one at the moment that is causing a lot of developments that might have got development approval to reassess and potentially defer and delay. The desirability of certain locations within the city of Melville is a big factor, which has driven up the demand for apartment development, and hence ensured that those locations are still viable for apartment development. But there are a number of locations which are well located, which aren't hitting that price point yet from a market feasibility perspective, and hence we're not seeing the demand in those particular locations. So, your waterfront locations and your locations which have beautiful views are still quite popular across metropolitan Perth because of the downsizer population, still being able to afford quite a premium apartment product. But it's your mid-tier and your affordable apartment product that's quite difficult for the private sector to make stack up at the moment, until such time as we see alternative construction methodologies or a construction prices decrease. At the moment, it's quite a challenging market, and that's why we're seeing a lot of development only in those premium locations, or a lot of inquiries in those locations at the moment.
Can I have a follow-up,
Councillor Edinger.
Thank you. So is the city then discounting the fact that there's been a, Hesperia have built a hotel at Murdoch, and there's going to be, I think it's student accommodation, the 26 level building that's going to be built. And surely, Hesperia, they're experienced developers, and to me that would signal to the rest of the development community that this is an area that should be invested in, and the best place to invest would be on the northern side of South Street. So that's just from my casual observation. Yeah.
Ms Bainbridge.
Would you like to comment? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Edinger. That's a really good example where the state government has come in and unburdened land and created a parcel of land which is really attractive for a developer, which we can't always emulate in other locations. So there's only a limited pocket of land within the Murdoch precinct where the state government has come in and unburdened to make it attractive to a private developer. Even then, that private developer has gone with a JV with a community housing provider, which is reliant on state government funding to make that project stack up. So there's still a number of factors that have gone into that to enable it to go ahead, which is quite a significant amount of state government assistance. So we can't necessarily emulate that on a broader scale at a local government level. We do require a lot of stakeholder alignment, which requires all of the landowners who have sort of skin in the game to come together and create a vision and alignment through a structure planning process to unburden the land, and it does take time.
One final question.
Councillor Edinger.
Just at that, this is a bit of left field question, but at the northeastern corner of the South Street and Murdoch Drive intersection, there is a big vacant lot of land. Is that owned by the state government?
Ms Bainbridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd have to take that question on notice and provide a bit more information as to the land tenure and the zoning and any limitations on that particular property, and provide that response in writing, if that's okay.
This seems to be turning into an LPS 6 discussion. We need to stick to the fact that we're actually discussing the notice of motion. So we've got Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and possibly to the officers here. I am staggered to hear that the justification being given for pressing ahead with this alternative motion is that in lieu of possible blanket R80, we should instead be considering, modelling and acting on the basis of a blanket R40 upcoding across Ball Creek and the other suggested suburb. Can I confirm that no other suburb in the city has a blanket R40 and upcoding, and that is not being considered anywhere else in the city, and that would seem on the face of it to be not just at odds with our current planning policies, but deeply inequitable to treat those suburbs entirely differently from everyone else?
Ms Bainbridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, for that question. Blanket rezonings are very unpopular at the state government level and unlikely to be supported. Based on my experience in several different local governments and my planning career, it requires a coordination and understanding of a number of technical studies, and that's why you need to have a structure planning process to support your density coding that you've proposed. It's very challenging market we're dealing with at the moment with a housing crisis, and there's some very interesting approaches being taken across Australia to try and address this, given the well-located nature of some of our areas which are underzoned essentially. But ultimately, it does require a level of coordination, and applying a low-density coding can potentially fragment the land and create future issues. You also have to consider even a higher density coding, you may get lower density development because there's not necessarily a minimum density. So having a coordinated approach to the way that you plan these areas is so necessary. Thank you.
And just as a follow-up, would we be able to, given that I would assume a suggestion of a blanket R40 upcoding and then applying some imagined number as to how many of those would be uptaken is a thoroughly unscientific and not particularly helpful way of talking about potential new dwelling targets. Could we get some indication of what possible dwelling targets we might be looking at, or is that work that will need to be done as part of consideration of a future structure plan?
Ms Bainbridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Absolutely. As part of the dwelling yield analysis, there's a number of assumptions that have to be taken into consideration, such as the age of the dwelling stock, the existing fragmentation of the land, any existing parcels that may be more likely to be uptaken, traffic studies, infrastructure limitations. There's a range of studies that have to occur. The LPS 6 process, as we've mentioned at previous elected member engagement sessions, we're really at the very start of our process. There's so much more work to do, and there's so much more input from the community and technical reports which will go into determining what is the most appropriate density codes in some of our areas, and that's the same process that will occur for a structure plan, but be it run parallel with a local planning scheme review. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have you got a further question, Councillor Fitzgerald?
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. If you take your hand down, that would be helpful. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. observed you kept saying development interest. So from what I gather, there are thousands of dwelling shortages. So from your record, in the pipeline, have there been a lot of development interest? Because we keep talking about affordable social housing, which the land value actually doesn't justify the affordable housing, and a lot of developers have moved further and further away from Melville city boundary. So from your observation, are there many people or developers that can take up the shortage? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're kind of off track a little bit. Doesn't seem to be related to the motion, the notice of motion progress WAPC structure plan reviews. So perhaps this is a discussion you can have with officers afterwards, Councillor Lee. Are there actually questions related to this motion? If there are no further questions actually specifically on this motion, can we move on to the next one? Thank you. Okay, going on to matters for which the meeting was closed to the public, I understand we haven't actually talked about any confidential matters during the meeting, and we have covered all reports. So there has been nothing discussed behind closed doors because we have not gone there. So we're up to closure, which is item 19. For the purposes of the notes, can you follow that? Could Councillor Fitzgerald confirm that he's still in attendance?
I am, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzgerald. And there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 7:56 p.m. Thank you very much for your attendance.